Welcome to Noseman Knows. Okay, and with that out of the way, hello everyone. This is Noseman, and as you all Noseman knows. That's too cheesy, isn't it? Anyway, so I'm going to try and make this tutorial quite compact. Okay, so thanks for watching, and see you next time. That's cheesy too, isn't it? Anyway, we are going to talk about thinking particles. Now, as I've already told you guys, if you're reading my Twitter feed, X-Particles is the best particle system out there, and both in a balance of power and ease of use. Anyway, go and buy it, and that's just about it. What I'm going to do, I'm going to focus on vanilla Cinema 4D, which is an expression I just found out a few weeks ago, which means out of the box, no plugins or anything like that. Just like ice cream, vanilla is the base flavor, I think. I'm not absolutely sure, but something like that. So we're going to start, and I'm going to show you a very simple way of creating and some general notions on how to control thinking particles. Now, anyone that doesn't know what thinking particles are, yeah, forget about it. Go watch something else. So yeah, let's switch to Cinema 4D and see what comes out of it. So in Cinema 4D, we have an empty scene. And what I'm going to do is what I consider to be the easiest way to generate particles to begin with. Now, I'm going to do the following. I'm going to create a sphere. I'm going to turn on my raw shading line so I can see the geometry, and I'm going to change this to icosahedron. Now, because thinking particles are part of the old school kind of espresso whatever system, some things don't work as expected and could work better, but they don't, which means that if we're going to use an object as an emitter, that object needs to be a polygonal object. So with my sphere selected, I'm going to press C on my keyboard and make it editable. So let's go and add a espresso tag. And what I like to do is just create a null, call it espresso. Excellent. And right click and put it here. Now there's no real reason why you would do that and not put it on the object, but I just like to have my espresso tags and some other things on separate nulls. Excellent. And in order for us to work properly, I'm just going to grab this, put it here, and move this a bit to the side. So we have a view of our viewport and a view of the espresso set up at the same time. And the way I prefer to create particles is with the PMatterwaves. Now, if you don't know what the PMatterwaves is, all you have to do is click on this to get the little magnifying glass and type matter. And then you get a list, PMatterwaves. If you right-click, new node, thinking particles, I think it's a generator, it's PMatterwaves over here. So it's the same thing. You can filter it over here. Just turn this off and we're good to go. Now, the PMatterwaves node gives you a host of different parameters. So you'll find them in the parameter node. And basically, the one that's of interest to me is the object. So if I grab my sphere and drop it in here, immediately rewind and press play, you get particles emitted from the surface of the object. Now I'm going to change the birth type to shot, and I'm going to shoot 1,000 particles. Excellent. I'm going to give them a limited lifespan of let's say 25 frames and a variation of 50%. So I think it's going to be anything from 12 to 35, something like that. But anyway, you have a variation in life, which means that other particles die earlier. Now, one of the panels you need open if you're doing any kind of thinking particle work is you go to your simulate, thinking particles, and thinking particle settings, because here's where we're going to set groups and whatnot. And let's dock this down here. Let's put it here. And instead of ticks, we're going to set this to dots. And it's a bit faster, I think. So now we have a stream of particles which is generated from the surface of our sphere. I'm going to turn off my sphere because I don't want to see it anymore. I just want to see the particles. So generation of particles done. I'm going to show you a few more things in the PMatterwaves, and we're going to do a couple of tricks just to get your creative juices flowing so you can start experimenting with thinking particles. Let's make this 600 frames long. And let's tell the particles we've got 25 life, and the speed, we can change the initial speed to something like 25 just to make them go a bit slower, which means that with their given lifespan, they're going to travel a bit less. Let's make this 50. So they're going to travel double the distance. Good. So the second question would be, how do we render particles? Thinking particles. Now here's one of the things you need to understand about thinking particles. So thinking particles works in its own little, let's call it context of itself. And I can render here and see nothing at all. And currently my object manager does not have any reference to those particles. Now, to make this absolutely clear, the fact that we have a null with an expressor tag, and that expressor tag is generating particles from the surface of that sphere, does not mean that these particles are part of the main Cinema 4D context. Okay? So, as far as Cinema 4D is concerned, these particles are there, but they're somewhere else. They're, let's say, in the back of the Cinema 4D's memory thing. So, how do we bring them to the forefront? And that is where simulate thinking particles, the particle geometry object comes in. This particle geometry is what brings the particles into the object manager context. So, for example, I want to render these as dots. In order to apply hair, which is going to be the method, we need an object to apply it to, and there was no object before we inserted the particle geometry object here. But the particle geometry now allows us to access these particles in the main Cinema 4D context. And how do we do that? Well, I can just go and tell the particle group to be all. So because we have our particle groups here, I can grab the all and drag it into the particle geometry. I think by default it takes all, although it may be empty, but it's good to put it in here if you have different particle groups and you want them to be rendered in different ways and so forth. So the next thing I'm going to do is add a hair material over here, or you can even go to the hair tags and say render. And if I render now, you will see that we have these dots which represents the particles. Now this hair renderer, it's quite interesting because we can render the position, the velocity, or the trail. And let me see, if I rewind and press play again and then render, you'll see now we get lines which look like hair, but actually it's just the velocity. And of course the scale is a bit too exaggerated. If I make this something like 25%, I think, and render again, now you see that they are shorter. So basically we are rendering a line which indicates the velocity of each particle. Or we can do the position, which is just a dot, or the trail, which is something like the mograph tracer. Anyway, just experiment with this and, just tell me what you find, because I need to learn some things as well. So render. Now, how do we control the color and all that of these particles? And if we go very close, you'll see we have all these little dots here. We do this by creating a hair material. So go to shader and go to hair material, and we have a hair material, and let's drag it on the particle geometry. Now if you go to your render settings, you will see that we have the hair render post effect added, because that's the way the particles, actually the hair, is introduced in the main renderers of Cinema 4D. Therefore the particles now are getting rendered by the hair renderer, which is a point or line renderer, whatever that is. Double click on the hair material. Let's go to color. Let's get rid of the gradient and let's make them red. Good. And the thickness now, I'm going to set the thickness to be 1 and 1 centimeter. And now if I render, you will see that we get these red dots. So this is how we render red dots as particles. So it's Cinema 4D, and because I have a specular, that's why they're going white. So now we won't see any white highlights. So we've created a simple particle simulation, and we are able to render it as dots using the hair renderer by modifying the thickness. So if I make this 0.1 and 0.1, you will see that the particles are going to be smaller dots like this. Excellent. I'm going to leave them at 1 and 1. Now let me show you very, very quickly how you would go about modifying these particles in a couple of different ways. So let me bring this up a bit. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to right click on this and add a group, and I'm going to call it newborn. Good. And then I'm going to go here and add another one. I'm going to call them older. Okay. Now the newly born ones, I'm going to make them green. And the older, I'm going to make them blue. Excellent. So let's rewind, press play, and you'll see that nothing happens. The reason nothing happens is that, there you go, PMatterwaves, that generally we are just generating particles in the default all group, which is white. Okay. Now, if I want these particles to be born or transferred to any other group, which is a very important thing about thinking particles, because that's how you can apply different effects to different particles by sorting them in all sorts of groups. What I'm going to do is right click here, go to the thinking particles, and go to the I think it's a standard, and create a P group node. All right, and currently the P group has the default of all. I'm going to drag the newborn in here. So now you can see that it says newborn. Command double click just to make it a bit bigger. And now I'm going to say every new particle that has been born, that's what the particle birth means. I want it to be part of the newborn particle system. Always rewind, press play. Now all the particles are green because they belong to the new group. Now they are children of the all, so they are newborn, but they are part of the all group as well. So this means that you can create all sorts of hierarchies here where a group belongs to another group and so forth. So you can have two subgroups like newborn and older which belong to the all. Or I can create another two subgroups in the newborn and call them, I don't know, newborn even and newborn odd, although I have no idea how I would make that distinction. But anyway, you are the smart ones. I'm just making tutorials. So let's go and see how we can assign a different group to a particle. And this, what you see here, these two nodes, is, let's call it one operation cycle. Okay. If we want to do something different after this has completed, then we actually need to access the particles in a different chain. Now, what I'm saying is not 100% technically correct, but you understand the overall idea. I'm going to take the newborn particles and assign an age. So I'm going to go here, and I think it's condition P age. Okay, but the question is which particles I want to assign this age. And age means it's a value that gets smaller from the minute they're born, and then it goes all the way to 0 until the minute they die. If you're wondering how much that overall value is, that is the life expectancy. Okay, so in a particle's life of 50 frames, for example, when we are at frame 25, we are at the 50th percentile of its age. Okay, good. So which group do we want to assign this age to? Well, you need to go to thinking particles and say ppass. And I want to pass the newborn particles into the page. And I want to set the pH to be something like die. So from, oops, it's not die, it's actually relative. There you go. And I want to take all the particles which are between 50 and 100% their age. So minimum, now mind you, I've got a deviation in the life expectancy of 50%. So the life expectancy of 50 frames is different for each particle based on this 50% value I've put here. So don't let this confuse you. Let's assume that all particles have a lifespan of 50 frames. So what this means here is that from 25 frames age until the end, 50 frames age, these are the particles that are going to be filtered. And what I'm going to do is get another P group, and because I'm lazy, I'm just going to command drag this, and I'm going to make these the older particles. So now this P group represents the older particles, and I'm going to put the on here. So if you hover over this, you will see down here it says bool. So when a particle when a particle's age is between 50 and 100% its life expectancy, then this value for each particle is going to be on. And I'm going to say put particles from here, from group newborn to group older, only when this is true. Okay, so you can see that because I've colored them in different colors, that I've got particles which exceed the 50th percentile of their age will be assigned to the other group. So now I can go and do all sorts of things. For example, I want to assign gravity only to the blue particles. So the green particles are flying away and are not attracted by anything. But the minute something enters, a particle enters the blue group, it's going to have gravity. So let's find gravity. So go here, gravity. Let's put a p gravity node in here. And we need to tell it which object represents gravity. So I'm going to create another null. I'm going to call this gravity, or I don't know, maybe I name it Clooney. Right, so this is Clooney, and I'm going to go and say Clooney is our gravity. I hope you get the joke, okay? I'm not wasting my time. Click on the gravity, and it says the type is planar now. It's not affecting anything because we haven't told Cinema 4D or Thinking Particles context for anything to be affected. I want it to be spherical, so it's right in the middle here. And I'm going to set PPass, so I'm going to tell the older particles, and there you go. You can see them. They go out, and then they start falling in. If you go here, you'll see that they start going inwards. Okay? So maybe that's not very visible. Maybe we should go here and say, okay, after 10%. So you can see now that falling in. Okay, is that obvious enough? Oh, for crying out loud. What I have to do to convince you. But anyway, so this setup says the following thing. Use the PMatterwaves node in object mode to emit points from the surface of this sphere, which needs to be editable. Use a shot value of 1,000 per second or something like that. Just right click and go to help and find out what this means. Don't expect everything from me. The particles have a life expectancy of 50, give or take 50% of that value. All right, so maybe 25 to 75%. I don't even know. The speed is going to be 25 units per second. Use your help again. They have a size, which we can't see now, but there is a size there. And this is pretty much the setup. Now, when the particles, so this is what this does, and that's it. So now we have some particles that comply to those rules. The next little chain says that take all the particles that are newborn, which is pretty much all the particles that are born from the PMatterwaves, and check and see if their age is between 50 and 100% their lifespan. Okay, and this PPass goes through every single particle and measures the age, and for every single one it finds that condition to be true, it puts it in the older group. So we're done by that. You see the color change. And the third is take all the particles which are in the older group and apply some sort of gravity to it. Okay, and we can set the amount of gravity and all that, decay and mass dependence and whatnot. Go to the help. And this is pretty much how you would go around setting up Thinking Particles setup. And just go and look in here and find all these weird nodes. Now, moving forward, I am going to show you more things about Thinking Particles so you understand how more of the nodes work. But now you have a better idea. But I'm not done yet. I have to look in the camera and say that. But I'm not done yet. Maybe I should wear my glasses. No, forget it. I'm not going to wear my glasses. And this is the good thing about the PMatterwaves. I want to emit not from the whole surface, but maybe I want to emit from, I don't know, birth type texture. Okay, and the way I'm going to do this is I'm going to put a noise in my texture. So now the emission is not happening from the whole surface, but from the white values of the noise. So I'm going to go here, and what I'm going to do is stop the playback so I can see my noise. I'm going to add, let's say, a Luca noise. I'm going to make it much bigger, so I'm going to make it 500%, and I'm going to use my low clip and high clip just to make the white parts less. And now you'll see that the particles are emitted only from where the white things are. So you can control the emission of the particles where from your object are going to be emitted by confining it to the white parts of the material. And of course, let's make it a bit smaller so we have a few more particles emitting. Now, let me go up. Oh, actually, no, I'm going to do one more thing. I'm going to add some animation. So now you can see that the noise is moving, so we have a more kind of chaotic emission of particles. And let's go up now, and let me change the shot to something like 10,000. Okay, so you get a better idea of what's going on. That's going to get a bit slower, and you can see the total number of particles here, the total, the groups, so you can see how many are here and how many are here. And you can see we have a maximum of like 33, 34, 35,000, yeah, between 33 and 34 and 35,000 particles. Okay, not bad. Let me make this 5. I'm actually, just pushing. See, so it's getting slower, but it's getting a bit more interesting. So let me render this. Hey, that's an interesting effect. Good. So I'm going to rewind, put it back to 1,000. Actually, I'm going to put this to 500. And I'm going to show you one last thing. One of the great things you can do with particles, which you can do with most particle systems, is add a mograph tracer. And in the tracer, I'm going to drag all groups. There you go. And I'm going to trace paths. So now it's going to create a spline with the trajectory of my particles. Okay, so we have all these splines here, which means that if I take this and drag it on my tracer, this may render lines. And it does indeed render lines. And because these lines are hairs, I can change the gradient. And I'm going to get gradient lines. Okay, so you can do all these fancy things. And yes, this pretty much concludes our very quick and simple tutorial for today. And I hope this gives you a sort of an interest into start playing with thinking particles. And by using the PMatterwaves node, you have a lot of control over the generation of your particles in a very simple way. Just remember, you need to use editable objects, and yeah, you can take it from there. Toodaloo.